Well, the upcoming New York Jets versus Miami Dolphins game on Sunday got a little bit more interesting with Sunday going into Monday. So let's explain why this game's a little bit more interesting and why at least they'll have you feeling something going into this game. Now, let's be clear. It would be a major upset win if the Jets were to win this game. As of Tuesday morning, am I predicting the Jets to win this game? I don't know if I'm there yet. Maybe at the end of the week I'll get to that point, but let's just talk about, forget actual predictions. So let's just talk about why this game has much more to play for now than it did 3 days ago even. So the Jets were 4-8. They found a way to beat a good Texans team to improve to 5-8. The Miami Dolphins were 9-3. Lost a surprising game to the Tennessee Titans to drop to 9-4. So the Dolphins lost 28-27 this past Monday night, literally just a few hours ago. And they had a 14-point lead with 4 minutes and 34 seconds left, which is obviously a really frustrating loss for the Miami Dolphins. It was at home. It was in their own building. They had a lead late, and they just were not able to close it out. And there's a couple factors that I think played into why the Dolphins lost this game against the Tennessee Titans, and we'll see if it's something the Jets could take advantage of. Again, not a guarantee that the Jets do with how poorly they've played on offense outside of last week. It's very hard to be like, aha, see, they're going to be fine the rest of the way. Let's pump the brakes there. But this is what happened with the Miami Dolphins last night. Tyreek Hill hurt his ankle. He's had a nagging ankle injury for a while, and he's been banged up this year. Now, granted, he's come back into these games more often than not, right? It feels like he gets banged up, leaves for a little bit, and comes back in. He was able to return in the second half of this game, but there was a very evident big difference when he was out and when he was missing time. That Miami Dolphins offense wasn't nearly as good as what it is when he's in there. And obviously he's one of, if not the best wide receiver in football. And his explosiveness is what I think makes that Miami Dolphins team so great. And I think this past week really showed why he should be in the MVP conversation because of his play and what the Dolphins offense looked like without him in there. And we'll see if that becomes a real debate here. But as of right now, Tyreek Hill, I would imagine is going to be good to go for Sunday. But, the nagging injury and banged up is something to keep an eye on. And the Dolphins offensive line, I thought, really struggled in this game against the Tennessee Titans. And they're kind of banged up right now. The Dolphins have been a banged up team this year, and to their credit, they win games. They're beat up on the teams they're supposed to beat up on, except for last night against the Titans. But Tua was sacked 5 times in this game, and in the first half of their first meeting, the Jets played Tua relatively well. They got him to turn the ball over twice. They only sacked him twice, which that's a number that you would like to be higher. And it was a 10-6 game before the Fail Mary. The Jets were in that game until a historically bad play made it a 17-6 game, and then it got out of hand in the second half. And I put more blame on the offense not being able to do anything at all in the second half and keeping that defense on the field. And that was a 2-week stretch against the Dolphins and against the Buffalo Bills, where the Jets defense, they gave up more points than they usually do. And I know the Dolphins ended up clearing 30, and they had a defensive touchdown in that game. And it was even still, it wasn't one of the better showings from this New York Jets defense. During that 2-game stretch, I think the Jets defense was really pressing and trying overcompensating, right? And trying to create turnovers because of how bad the offense was. The offense could not do a damn thing in either of those games. So they took probably aggressive and some might say unnecessary risk to try to create turnovers and get the offense extra possession because they weren't going to score any other way, which is a really sad way to play football. But the last 2 weeks, the Jets defense has played really well. They took care of business against one of the best passing attacks in the NFL in the Houston Texans. Granted, they were missing a couple of receivers, but they were still getting after C.J. Stroud, and they made C.J. Stroud's life hell. before he left the game with concussion. And the week before that, they were excellent against Desmond Ridder. Obviously, different competition level going up against, Tua versus Desmond Ridder. But CJ Stroud's been great this year outside of that performance. And, as I mentioned, the Jets played Tua well in the first half. It was just in the second half that game got way out of hand. And really the big thing is another reason why this game is looming so large and why the interest factor should be a little bit higher is the report about Aaron Rodgers. TMZ was reporting that Aaron Rodgers is expected to get cleared for the Washington game. And this is the last game the Jets will play before that Christmas Eve game against the Washington Commanders. And if the Jets win, you could have that conversation and be like, well, if you win out and you go 9-8, maybe, if you're not completely dead, like maybe you do it. But if they lose this game and drop to 5-9 with 3 games to go, I don't know how you possibly bring him back in that spot, just because while you might not be mathematically eliminated at that point, even though you're pretty much at that point now, but it just seems like that is too much of a risk for me. I would not bring him back, but you could have that conversation after a win. You could be, and again, it's not an easy walk in the park thing. It would be a major, major upset if the Jets were to beat the Miami Dolphins this upcoming week. But don't you just need to have a Zach Wilson balls out game? Let's say he outduels Tua in this game. Let's have some fun with it. Jets win 27-24. He goes for 300 and 2 touchdowns again. And then it's like, okay, Aaron Rodgers is cleared. And then you got to have the discourse of, oh, you can't possibly bench Zach Wilson now. He's playing so well. Why are you going to go to Aaron Rodgers now? And are you going to ride the hot hand? And don't you need that discourse for a week going into Christmas against the Washington Commanders? That just seems too perfect because there's always a controversy with the quarterback spot for the New York Jets. But this game just got a little bit more interesting. Again, they have to win this game for it to matter in the Aaron Rodgers conversation. But especially after the loss to the Tennessee Titans last night, it seems a little bit more possible. Like if the Dolphins just, ran up, won 35-10, 35-14. It's like, oh, well, they're just a juggernaut, ripping through these bad teams, which they were for most of the year. Then it'd be like, all right, whatever. It was a fun game against Houston. And yeah, the dream of Aaron Rodgers coming back was a fun one, but Jets are going to get steamrolled in Miami, and maybe they still do, right? Like we've seen this team play pretty bad. It was, so far this year, the Houston game looks like an outlier, but if Zach Wilson builds on it, and if the team in general builds on it, and they go down there and they know that Aaron Rodgers is right around the corner potentially, I don't know. I'm just saying maybe this game's a little bit more interesting than we thought it would be 3 days ago. And for that, it's a little exciting. Let me know your thoughts down below in the comments. Once again, I'm Matt O'Leary, and I'll catch you next time.